Achieving your goals and living a fulfilling life is easier when what you want is aligned with your chemical reward systems. Current societal norms are hindering us from reaching this state and flourishing. Let me tell you what I mean. Remember that time you had an exciting project you were working on? Maybe it was for work, maybe for school, or maybe just for fun. And you ended up stuck on your couch scrolling through Instagram or Facebook instead. We all know this situation too well. In our brains, we all have a chemical reward system. This system ensures that we are carrying out actions that are essential to survival, such as consuming food and water, reproduction, and social interactions. This reward system is called the dopamine reward pathway. It activates when we do one of these activities to create a feeling of enhanced well-being. The system uses dopamine, a chemical produced by certain neurons in the brain, to create these feelings of pleasure. Remember, dopamine is a good thing. Yet, when you use a substance such as stimulants, depressants, opioids, or hallucinogens, you may become addicted because it exploits this reward system. All addictive substances directly or indirectly regulate this system and release high levels of dopamine. Addiction is much more complex than this, but a reward pathway plays a huge part. These abnormal levels of gratification lead to lows when not using the substance. In order to avoid this, people generally go back to doing even more of what brought you the pleasure, creating a cycle. Addiction is not limited to these substances. It is also possible to be addicted to activities, although not by the exact medical definition. This system, the one that enabled us to survive for millions of years, is now quite possibly one of our biggest individual struggles. In the past, I found myself spending hours on my phone instead of reading a book I really want to read, or writing an essay I'm actually interested in writing. Even though technology has so many positives, many social media designers have come out to say that their platforms were designed to be addictive. Tristan Harris, a former Google employee, is a strong voice for this problem. He has created a company called the Center for Humane Technology, and also featured in The Social Dilemma on Netflix, which I highly recommend watching. He left Google because he felt their work was about manipulating people into getting their attention, and less about what is really good for them. This business model, based on having your attention, led to technology being overstimulating and having addictive properties. Harris says your phone is a lot like a slot machine. We can even find a similar situation in many of the modern foods we eat. They generally have high amounts of sugars, fats, and salts, which can all have serious health effects in excess. Yet some people keep eating the same unhealthy foods. Why? Salts, fats, and particularly sugars were also rare in nature. And they are all essential to survival, which means consuming them activates your reward system. And in our modern society, this leads to us eating large amounts of these processed foods. Essentially, people's desire to make money has unintentionally or intentionally created entire industries based on the exploitation of human biology. Our modern way of life has allowed for the constant activation of our reward system, which was never possible in the past. This could be a great thing. We should always be doing something that makes us feel good, right? But this isn't the case. Hedonism will not bring happiness because of the same reason that people struggle with addiction. Constant usage of highly stimulating activities means the lows will be worse, and you'll be left craving more and more. In a recent Vox article by Sigil Samuel, he interviews Cameron Seppa, a clinical professor of psychiatry. Seppa released a guide to dopamine fasting, a process where a person reduces activities that activate your reward pathway in high amounts. Here is a quote from that article. The point of dopamine fasting is to both increase behavioral flexibility by reducing impulsive behavior for extended periods of time, by both avoiding conditioned stimuli that trigger impulsive behavior, and also naturally exposing ourselves to unconditioned stimuli, but not giving in to a conditioned response. This helps weaken that conditioning over time. The idea behind this method is that lowering your levels of its strong addictive stimulants allows for more joy in doing the activities you want to do. We can get the same amount of happiness from following a passion as spending hours on social media. It comes down to what your normal is. If you're used to constantly being on your phone, writing an essay won't feel good. But if you don't normalize unnecessary stimulating activities, you will find joy writing the essay. Earlier this year, a documentary was released called The Minimalist, Less is Now. The film had two major takeaways. First, it suggests that you should always ask yourself, does this bring value to my life? Second, and more importantly, is the fact that what brings you happiness is the relationships with those you have around you. I have personally incorporated aspects of both of these practices into my own life, and they have greatly helped me in working towards what I want to be doing, instead of what seems to be bringing me the most pleasure in the moment. These two theories fit very well together, although it must be noted not to take either to an extreme. We all want deeper meaning and happiness in our lives. A component of this is finding a way for you and your reward system to work in unison. Doing a dopamine detox or taking inspiration from minimalism are just two possible ways to achieve this. To finish that project you didn't get to, and to live by your own terms. With many people struggling with mental health amidst the pandemic, we must all ask the right question of ourselves. How do you want to spend your time?